So what works here? What are the things that really help when it comes to weight loss? It comes down to diet, stress, sleep, exercise, daily practice. I don't think I have a quote in here from Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Zen Buddhist master, but his whole point is about eating consciously and eating mindfully. I don't know how many people, I'm very guilty of this myself. It gets so busy many times, I don't eat that consciously when I'm eating. But the point of it is to actually taste the flavor of the food you're eating. And it seems so simple. But if I go down to Houston's and I have their filet mignon steak, it's delicious, and I notice it because it's so flavorful. Take that same steak at about 12:45 on any Monday through Friday afternoon, and I might be noticing a little bit of that, but not a lot of that, because I've got 14 things coming at me. And it's just a matter of consciousness. This may be the centerpiece to weight loss, actually. Because if we were to actually taste and sit and relax and focus on what we were doing, we probably won't become Zen Buddhist monks, but we will become more aware of how the food's tasting, how full we are, when we should cut off the eating, and when we should also have a time to rest and digest the food rather than jumping within a moment of finishing your meal to the next thing. So it's a major player. What works? A realistic, workable dietary plan consistent with your lifestyle and consistent with the changes you are willing to make in your lifestyle. Getting a dietary plan like South Beach, Atkins, Fiber 35 is great. If it doesn't resonate with what you're willing to do in your lifestyle, it's not going to work. If it works out that what's resonant for you is maybe to stop eating sugar, that's a resonant thing. That's a start. It's a foot in the water. It's not a toe, it's a foot in the water. That's a big player. If you're working with somebody consistently, and I'll have a slide on this here, regular and maintenance follow-up with your nutritional consultant. Now let me tell you why this is important. You're accountable. You're accountable to yourself. You're accountable to your cheering team. You're accountable to the person who's helping cheer you on in staying on task. There's a good study that was published, I believe in JAMA, I don't have it in here, that showed that people who dieted with nutritional consultation for 3 years, just diet. They didn't talk about exercise, they didn't talk about neurotransmitters, they didn't talk about hormones, they just dieted with a nutritional consultant for 3 years, ended up reducing their weight by 20% and holding steady. It actually was a little higher in the second, was like something like 30%. And in the third year, it was 20%. Well, think of your own weight right now, or when you've been in a heavier state, and knock 20% off. At the beginning of January 2009, I was 20 pounds heavier than I am right now. Okay? And that means that I only lost, what would that be? For my body weight, that would be 10% of my body weight. I'm about 170 right now. 20% for somebody who weighs 190 pounds is 38 pounds less. That's just with a nutritional consultant. If you add in hormones, neurotransmitter assessment, whatever's appropriate for the individual, because in my practice, we don't blanket test people. We try to focus on what makes sense for this individual. If I see a woman who's 50 years old, who's having irregular cycles with her periods, who's put on weight she notices in the last couple of years that she didn't have before, or she's gained it much faster than she ever did and she can't get that weight off, I know we've got a lot of women in that age group who do that and have that problem. We're looking at neurotransmitters, we're looking at hormones as starting points. After we check our blood chemistries, obviously, make sure there's no liver, renal disease, diabetes. But that's rarely true for women who come into the office. It's usually these imbalances. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the slide, DHEA, estrogen, testosterone, cortisol are all players in that. Just one little side note. Testosterone for women, should it be given? Well, most endocrinologists say no, not necessary. In fact, up until about a year or 2 years ago, a normal testosterone level for a woman who was 50 years old was 0. Never mind that she didn't have any libido. Skin wrinkles. No muscle mass to speak of. Lots of fat. Motivation out the window. No desire to engage in exercise. If she did, the muscle mass didn't hold. Never mind the facts. Let's let our prejudice and ignorance stand in place of that. So we have to look at the data. What testosterone does for women is a lot more than libido. It helps in every imaginable way to achieve these goals of overcoming weight loss resistance. You don't use testosterone if your levels are reasonably good. If your levels are low normal and you have symptoms, it should be considered. Low normal is not optimal normal any more than average American women's weight is optimal. Those average American women's weight are dying sooner than women who are 15% leaner, and women whose levels of testosterone are in the upper third of the normal range are doing much better. For men, it's even more important. Just giving a little thing to the guys in the audience. If your testosterone levels are low or low normal, according to Harvard, in a major review article published in 2006, of all testosterone articles ever published globally, what they concluded was, and subsequently wrote the book on it last year, and published the book, Testosterone for Life, is that men whose levels are low or low normal have an increased risk of prostate cancer and aggressive prostate cancer, not the nice prostate cancer that doesn't do anything but sits there for years and years and years and doesn't go anywhere. This is the prostate cancer that kills men. They have an increased risk of heart attacks. They have an increased risk of diabetes. They have an increased risk of strokes. They get an increased risk of dying younger from low testosterone. Men whose testosterone levels are normal, upper normal, either naturally, which is rare, or from testosterone replacement therapy, or from testosterone replacement therapy. This is bioidentical testosterone that we use, helping men achieve levels that are not in the normal range, they're in the upper normal range. I like to see men in the upper third, just as I like to see women there too. Men whose levels are there have no increased risk of prostate cancer. Let me repeat that. There is no increased risk of prostate cancer when you replace with testosterone. You are protecting men. Men who do get prostate cancer, which means they were destined to get it, have the least aggressive kind of prostate cancer. They have the lowest incidence of heart attacks, strokes, and diabetes. Plus their libido's better. Their erections are better. So it's like, what's the problem? It's a no-brainer. I'm telling you that in conventional endocrinology, what would be said is, it's normal to have a free testosterone of 56, if they even measure the free testosterone. Because it's only the free testosterone that's biologically active. You get the drift here, right? There's a reason for this. There's a biological, published research stuff. I don't like practicing medicine without the data. But what's unfortunate is that a lot of the data we're covering tonight is not really looked at. So that's why we're having this whole presentation. Your nutritional consultant, who is a trained, experienced consultant, will give you a significantly better chance of maintaining your hard-earned success. Coming back to that article, people who work with a person who will cheer them on, maintain their weight loss. If you do the weight loss thing, you read the book, you lose the weight, you gain it back. You've got no support for that. And I'm all for people who have support groups. But what's really most powerful is working with somebody who that's their thing. That's what they do for a living. Adequate fiber, adequate water.